Once again, it is the spoiler room. So glad you folks could join us today. Venturing down the stairs, pulling up the chair. Don't worry, we've got the heat on, and grab your favorite beverage as we talk movie spoilers. And yes, we are putting a bookend to Full Force Month. You know, you get one of those things where people say, it's been quiet all day, and someone said, "Wow, it's just been quiet today," and then you just get swamped. Well, my good friend who's with me today, Mr. Ian Simmons, said last week, "Wow, Mark, you haven't picked a really bad or odd, film so far. We've had a good run for the Full Force Month, and tonight we're going to see if that trend stays true or if we finally picked a quote unquote bad film. Though in the spoiler room, there's never really any truly quote unquote bad films. And yes, my right hand man, Ian Simmons, how you doing, sir?
Doing great. I want to clarify that though. We have talked about plenty of bad movies, but we always find stuff to enjoy about them. I'm talking about something where you love it or you hate it. I'm on the opposite end of the spectrum and really like kind of butt heads and it gets nasty, but you've got this talent for pulling out movies that are either legitimately great or they are bad but interesting and entertaining to talk about. I mean, you've had a hell of a streak, as I think I mentioned before.
We have had a hell of a streak, and I really appreciate that. And we always try to find something in a film, except for Vacation, that remake, that one with the hems. Yeah, fuck that movie. Anyway, never. One will ever convince me otherwise. Say again, only film in like ever that I left the theater angry. But tonight, hopefully, Mr. Ian Simmons is not angry at me for watching our final Full Force movie tonight, starring Mr. David Carradine, a very tired-looking David Carradine, in Future Force. So, Mr. Ian Simmons, as always, please, sir, give the synopsis for Future Force.
Okay, this movie. This movie came out in 1989,
which is the first surprise.
Well, it's not surprising because this movie looks like it came out in 1989. I love it. It's got the 4:3 aspect ratio. It's like I got claustrophobic watching this movie, but it's called Future Force. And if you look at the box art, it's like David Carradine. It looks like he's in an alley and he would be shooting up heroin if he didn't have this giant mechanical arm. And he looks grouchy about it. He's like, damn it, all my good holes are under this thing. But which is, I've used that line in bed before, but
that's anyway, what she said.
That's anyway. Right. It takes place in the very far-flung futuristic year of 1991. This movie came out in 89. And it's like, in 1991. But apparently, crime is rampant. Everybody hates the cops. Everyone wants to defund the police. It's basically a documentary about 2021, but everything gets privatized, and it's very RoboCop. And this is not the first time I'm going to mention that movie because this is 2 years after RoboCop, and I'm surprised there wasn't some kind of like a lawsuit involved. But essentially, there is a privatized police force called Cops. COPS. And according to our opening narration, COPS stands for Civilian Operated Police Incorporated. COPS.
It does say on the sign those systems.
Yes. So I think the movie's first mistake is they didn't get their voiceover right.
No, they didn't get
because throughout the rest of them, because you don't know that until like 20 minutes into the movie when he finally goes to the police station and it says COPS and it says systems on there. Like, because I'm sitting there distracted for that first 20 minutes. Like, shouldn't it be COP? Oh, fuck it. Anyway,
copy.
Yes, a copy paste from RoboCop. But no, David Carradine plays, the best way I could describe him, he's like the physical embodiment of beer. He's got like kind of this.
Sorry, that's beautiful. That is so accurate.
He's got like he looks about 20 pounds overweight. He looks really tired. Got the bad kind of like hair falling over part of his face, beer gut, jeans vest with a giant like gold/brown hand on the back, which made me think this is part of like the Mono's Hands of Fate, cinematic universe, which I loved it. Maybe he was like a descendant of the Master. Now he's fighting crime.
Oh,
But yeah, we should have Tanya in here talking about this.
yeah. Have Torgo show up.
Yeah. But no, so he's essentially, all cops now are like bounty hunters, and there's like this wire that goes out with all the most wanted people, and you go after them, and it's you have the right to remain dead, or you have the right to die, I think, and otherwise you can see an attorney. So it's a really morbid future. But long and short of it, there's new ownership at cops, someone who rose to the top through nefarious means, this guy named Adams, played by William Zipp, who is, I think, delivers a legitimately great performance in this movie. He's just in the damn wrong movie.
He's also the casting director, by the way.
Really?
He got credit. I looked in the credits at the end, and he was casting director, I think.
See, I love that. It's kind of like when George Bush put Dick Cheney in charge of like appointing the vice president. Like, man, I'll do it.
Fine. Okay, sure.
But no. So there's this journalist who apparently has a VHS tape of the head of cops doing something that would get him in a lot of trouble, and so the guy essentially has all of his like cops and bounty hunters go after her, and including our Mr. Tucker, who's played by David Carradine. Turns out they end up kind of befriending each other. They're on the run, and they're both hunted, and everyone's got warrants out for their arrest, and lots of shootouts. This thing it takes place in like 2 junkyards, and like 3 alleys.
Alley. Yeah, I know.
Like that's the entire movie. It's like, okay, cut. We've wrapped the one alley chase. Now we're gonna have the night helicopter car alley chase, and then we're gonna have some, I don't know if there are motorcycles in this movie. There might as well have been, but it's the cheapest looking thing I've seen in a long time. But that's the high level of it. We'll get into all the details.
We will definitely get all the details. We have one of our gentlemen who has listened to quite a bit of the episodes and has been talking to me off and on, and he commented tonight that maybe David Carradine's a demon with a metal hand. See, that would be interesting. I think though you're going a little too far though, because you're giving it too much thought. No, he's a guy with a power glove on steroids that's got a speaker attached to it for whatever that's where the film opens, and he's doing a bounty. We're being introduced to Mr. Badass David Carradine, Mr. Tucker, and he's got his buddy on the video screen, because that's how you know it's in the future of 1991. And so he's got his device because the guys he's hunting decide to bolt, and so he's like, forget this. So he puts the power glove on, and it looks like a power glove, but they put a close-up of it. If you look at it, it's got this inverted speaker as like a pad and some piping. And I mean, it's definitely made on a budget. It's a very frugal power glove. In fact, the Nintendo power glove looked more advanced than this thing. But he gets it, and yeah, he can. It gives him extra super strength, and he can shoot lasers from it. And enjoy it, folks. Enjoy seeing the hand in action in this first opening action sequence, because you're not going to see it again for another 75 minutes.
But when you do see it, it's full on. What I loved about that end sequence, it reminded me of Megaforce.
Yeah.
That ridiculous climax where he's on the flying motorcycle thing. This is like that, but with Sam Raimi's Evil Dead aesthetic, where you've got it's just like the hand is attached to the camera. It's like punching or attacking or flying. It's so low tech, but it's so effective and fun. Although I am surprised because I didn't think it would do that much punching. I figured it's a big rocket metal hand. It would just like fly through the bad guys, but no. By the way, Demon with a Metal Hand is a great name for a bad 80s like
metal
or
hairband,
sci-fi
yeah.
movie or
Oh,
hairband.
hairband,
Yeah.
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 Or yeah, sci-fi movie. I could the demon with the metal hand.
So yeah, Robert Baum,
Yes.
go and make that movie. Make a retro, not like a crappy retro, but an actual retro movie called Demon with a Metal Hand. We'll talk about it.
And Robert also said maybe they found the glove in the junkyard alongside Carradine. Whoa.
He looks like
Wow.
hell in this movie.
He does. I'm watching it and I'm like, even in the action sequence, because this is the guy, kung fu guy. This is a guy, he martial arts skills. He had skills, and so they get him involved in some martial arts fighting, and he looks exhausted. He looks like he's just, the check cleared.
He looks like he read the script.
It looks like he read the script. He produced it. Apparently, he shows up as executive producer, but maybe he paid for lunch or something. I don't know. But I was just surprised that the hand didn't, because usually in films like this, a gimmick like that, like the robotic hand or whatever, it's constantly being used. It just forever. And in here, the opening situation, he's using it. We get to see it. He gets to use a laser on it, and it's electrical, and he can hold cars back with it. I mean, this is an impressive glove. And then another 75 minutes, you don't see it. And he's been at least 3 situations over the course of that time where if he had that glove, which is just sitting in his trunk, he could have utilized it. It's not like it has to charge or anything.
Well, it might, because it's in this case, right?
It's not like
he's got a holster for it. Also, that's the other strange thing about one of the many strange things about this movie. Everyone's got like these hip holsters, but they're just like old style revolvers. There's no like future guns or anything.
No, they're all it's all like the Old West, and they're bounty hunters. And like, if you've ever seen the show Dog the Bounty Hunter, that's what the cops force literally looks like. These guys in jean jackets with the ripped vests, the ripped off sleeves, or the bandanas or whatever. None of them look like any type of law enforcement. They're waiting for, they're waiting for Chuck Norris or for Charles Bronson to show up. I don't know.
So you're saying that they didn't go to the future for this movie. They just went to Florida.
They went to
But I do love that, because the cop station, I couldn't help think of RoboCop, because here it's cops, and in RoboCop it was OCP in Detroit. But there's this nice looking police building. They got the cool logo, but you walk in, it's just like trash. It's like bounty hunters sitting at police desks with their feet up, and one guy is like scratching his temple with his gun in the background. I'm like, wow.
Yeah. The floor. I mean, that whatever place they rented to be the cops hideout or cops station was really rough looking inside. They had no, they just get through up desks. The desks are every which way too. They're not like lined up or anything. There's like one guy, I think, in like a police type outfit who looks like he just doesn't want to be there.
He's probably the police consultant they hired for the movie.
I think he is. I think he could be the consultant. But yeah, so you've got this group of guys, and gals, men and women make up the bounty hunters. But the way they play at it, everybody seems to have a grudge against Tucker till they don't. They all seem to be really pissed at Tucker till they don't be pissed at Tucker. It was like this group. I'm like, wait, are these his group of buddies that they're going to go out and take down the system, or are they a bunch of backstab? And it's like,
I didn't think that deeply about it, but I would suspect sort of like a grudging admiration, because it's clear that he's, the baddest badass out of all of them.
He is.
So I don't know if they like him or if they're jealous of him, but they're definitely kind of afraid enough not to try something, because they know that might be their last move.
Well, I mean, it is David Carradine. I mean, he's still even in tired old David Carradine. It's still, I'm sure they were still hesitant because he wasn't supposed to be tired Carradine, in the movie, the Tucker character. So I guess he's still a threat, and that's the thing, is there's moments where that Carradine gets in here that are like that. There's a scene right in the beginning where we were talking about not beginning, but later on in the station, where you've got all the different bounty hunters and they've got their little teletype of the bounties coming through, and the rookie who obviously couldn't get a job with WWE. So
there's so many of those guys in this movie.
So many of these guys in it. Maybe it was an off day and they needed some extra brawn. He's like this big buff guy, and he's about to take on Tucker with his gun and do a duel. And of course, I mean, and Tucker actually, Carradine looks actually scary. He like gets this look at everything, and you're just like, oh, that's why they're scared of this guy. And then that goes away, and then it's just like beer Carradine.
Yeah. The one thing I noticed when they go to the bar, which is called the Demilitarized Zone, which I just love that.
Good reason, because nobody can fight in the DMZ.
Yeah, I mean, that's it makes me wonder if that's the people who made John Wick were studying Future Force, because it definitely reminded me of that hotel. But they go in there, and the bartender, when he comes, like, I don't want anyone shooting this place. He looked like a cross between Christian Bale in that movie The Fighter with Donnie Wahlberg and the current governor of California, Gavin Newsom. Because he pops in a couple of times here. I'm like, this is so weird, because he looks like both those guys. But I did like that kind of idea of this place where everyone kind of hangs out. It's almost like the Uber of law enforcement. When they don't have a case that they're actively working on, they're just like fucking around, watching strippers and drinking beer.
Yeah. Well, what you got me is is this actually a strip club? But I'm not sure it actually was. There was one person strip, but the others were just dancing like go-go dance. I'm like, I don't know. It's the future, so who can tell how quirky the future is?
Hey, now it's 30 years in the past.
Now it's 30 years.
This is the 30th anniversary of the 32nd anniversary.
Shit,
of whatever.
Oh, wow. Wow. Robert Ball said the Carradine did do a guest episode, was a guest on the episode of The Fall Guy. And that series that did star the Bionic Man Steve Austin, which it did. And I mean, David Carradine, he's still, you could tell he was in his 50s now when he made this. So I mean, he has his moments. There are a couple of action fight moments to where you're like, there he is, the guys, that's the guy we know. And the robe that the reporter wears, which we'll get to her in a minute, was Kane's robe, I believe, and that hand was his symbol from Kane from Kung Fu. So the little Easter egg to that. But yeah, this reporter, so she's breaking a news story supposedly about corruption. She's got her 3/4-inch VHS tape that she's not played yet, because she's teasing it, because it's sweeps week. You can't just give the goose right away. You got to get the stuffing first, and then the cranberry sauce, and then you give the goose later in the week. Sorry, it was Thanksgiving last week. I had a lot of food. Just finished the leftovers, the turkey nachos. Anyway,
turkey nachos. Ooh,
yeah, that's tasty. But anyway, so her friend actually has the tape, and it almost gets the impression like her friend did most of the work and was giving the story to her so she could get her big break. And they don't play the tape. This Adams guy is like, oh, we've got to take her down. We don't know what's on the tape. And then they put the $100,000 bounty put on by his man at arms, played by Robert Tesserier Becker, and he puts the bounty on this reporter, and this reporter is, I don't know, she's kind of there. She's
a few things. One, I love that the crime that she's accused of is
treason.
Like, because murder will get you, a death sentence, in this future, like jaywalking will. It's just like treason. It's almost like corporate espionage. Why not? But no, I think if this had been a more serious movie, and perhaps someone will explore this, and maybe they already have, and I just don't know about it. But I think there's something cool about the idea of, as you mentioned, this reporter let's find out her name, because I don't want to just keep calling her or the reporter. Do you remember what she was called?
Just Marion.
Marion, that's right. She is, it's like her first day on this new job that her friend did get her, because she is her producer. She's like, you hired me. I think she is just a news anchor, a news presenter. She's not actually a reporter. She's just there to give the information. So when she's like, we've got this breaking story, it's not like she dug up all this stuff. It's just like, my boss handed me this tape, we're going to put it on the air. I think it'd be interesting to dive into that, where this corrupt cop, this Adams guy, he sees that this lady on the news station is threatening with this tape. So he's like, we've got to get her, even though she's just reading the news.
She's just reading the news.
Like going after the wrong person, essentially. Now, the producer does get it, in the end, pretty brutally from what we see. Although it's funny, because the scene where Marion and Tucker discover this producer in her apartment dead, which is also very reminiscent of the Terminator, she's all cut up on the kitchen floor, but because she's not that great an actress, you can tell that she's still breathing. So there was part of me when they're sitting there like saying, what are we going to do next? Her friend could be like, get me to the hospital.
What's even better about this scene, and I don't think it was intentional. I think you're supposed to think that they go back to his place, but let's set this up, folks. They're on the run. Okay, Tucker, she chooses to live, obviously, instead of die. It's kind of a reverse of I am the law.
Although we do get one of those.
We do get one of those. We absolutely get an I am the law moment here, where I'm just like, oh, look, this influenced Judge Dredd, or Judge Dredd influenced it, or whatever. But definitely get a Judge Dredd moment. But anyway, so she decides to live, so he's taking her along, and they were expecting her to get killed. The other bounty hunters are getting paid by the Crooked Adams to kill Tucker and her, and Tucker's like, now suddenly got a moral code and says, oh no, she chose life, so I'm going to protect her now. They go to her producers. She's dead. Nothing, I guess, ever gets the romance emotions going better than seeing your producer friend dead on the floor, because these two end up coupling, and the way it's cut, it's almost as if it's in the same apartment.
That didn't occur to me until just, oh, wow.
You're catching it, because they saw her dead. They don't leave the room. She's in shock. He's hugging her tightly, and they get that, movie hug look, like, oh, something's going to happen, Then we cut to him driving in the car by himself the next morning. It's morning, because you can tell the shadows on the same street they were driving at night are now going the different way. So, and then we cut to her waking up, and there's a scene, a ticket saying, I got to go do this alone. So he's going to take care of Adam.
Love Tuck.
And she gets out, and it looks like the same apartment where they had the dead producer. And I'm just like, wait, so they hugged, her producer friend's dead, and they went and made it in, but she was wearing his robe. So I'm like, oh, they're at his home, but they use the same apartment. So it looks like they just did it at her dead friend's apartment.
It's great. She gets up to go make a cup of coffee. She trips over her girlfriend's corpse.
I forgot. I thought she stepped over her, in all honesty.
But it still doesn't work, even if they forgot to put in the part where they went back to his place, because that guy does not live in anything resembling that apartment.
No. And it's too clean.
And B, Tuck, I don't care how attracted he is to this reporter, what kind of rapport they have. He's not going to just leave some strange woman in his apartment. I trust you to just be here by myself while I go do this mission.
It was love at first sight. So, or not first sight. No, because he was going to kill her at first sight. It was love at the sight of the dead friend. I don't know.
That'd be great if that's what turned his that's what thawed his cold dead heart. Wow.
So there's a scene there. The dialogue in this film is wild too, because there's like one scene where there's a helicopter chase, which again, like Ian said, they're in the same neighborhood for this entire film at various parts. So they're just driving down the same 4 roads constantly. And she yells at him and goes, "Turn left, do something."
Well, not only that, but this scene goes on for like 5 minutes.
Right?
And so I don't know any stretch of any city that has like one continuous like 17 or 20 mile block, because they're just like the helicopter is following this car. They're both going very fast and they're not turning. And also the angles, I'm pretty sure, don't match up. You've got the one guy hanging out the helicopter with the gun, and then you got David Carradine like shooting out the front of his car.
He's shooting to the side. He's not shooting up. He's kind of shooting to the side. And I'm like, what are you shooting? What are they both shooting at? Because they're shooting like stormtroopers. They're missing each other completely. I mean, I'm like sitting here going, wow, really? Just what? It's like.
And at one point, I think there was an earlier car chase where he's like driving and shooting out the window. He's got like these 6-shooters. Like none of his guns have like cartridges or anything. I don't know. I don't think he runs out of bullets, and I don't think they do the thing where it's the magic gun where all of a sudden it's got like, 50 bullets in it. I think he just like has these guns sitting in the passenger seat. He's just like going through the pile.
He carries 2 of them. He carries a 6-shooter, which actually at one point in the film he does only do 6 shots, but then he puts it aside, and then it's a Luger, and then that was the one that doesn't seem to really run out of bullets when he's shooting in the chase, because he runs through his 6. Because he's not shooting at the air at the helicopter for whatever reason. I don't know what he's shooting at, but maybe he's hitting targets off to the side. It's like a video game where he's got to open the gates and you got to hit the target in order to open the gate to keep flying. Kind of like a Crash Bandicoot or something. I don't know.
I like it. I like it.
But he's shooting somewhere. He runs through his 6 bullets, and then he pulls out his other gun, and he's like, "Oh, okay." And then he continually shoots the wrong direction. The chase scene too, the road from scene to scene, the cars don't always match of which direction they're going, so you really have no idea how this chase is going. Kind of like someone with a squiggly line, but it's still fun. It's still kind of interesting to watch.
It's fun once you realize, oh, this is kind of messed up, but then it just keeps going on for minutes and minutes on end. And this thing is like 80 minutes long, including and beginning and end credits, so it's not that long a film, but there are parts of it just feel so dragged on. I think part of that is because of the lack of like interesting locations. It's like we've been making fun of it, but it does kind of take a toll. Like, oh, we're back on this street, oh, we're back down this alley, oh, it's at night, it's at daytime. I do want to talk about the establishing shot of our villains in that junkyard with with the former head of cops, or soon to be former head. He's strapped into a car that's about to get lifted up and put into a car compactor. Now he's sitting there begging for his life, and it's really sad. But then when Adams and his giant henchmen like walk away from the car, you can tell there's nobody in the car. But then they cut to the close-ups, and it's like the guy like screaming and shaking, like, "Let me out, please, no!" And then they cut back to the wide, and they're like, "There's nobody in there."
And then it's almost like they realize that throughout the night of shooting, because later on, as the tractor gets closer, and again, this is another longer dragged out scene, as the thing gets closer to putting them into the trash compactor, they start taking angles to where like a pole is blocking the driver's seat or a rod, but at first you're right, you don't see. And then when he gets thrown in the trash compactor, your brain, can be shut off, but even still, you're thinking of the logistics where the compactor is crushing, and then they cut to the inside of him screaming. Nothing has been crushed around him, and if you look at the outside, the progression of the crush, he should be dead already.
Well, they made cars differently in the future.
That's true. They are of a steel frame. It takes a while before you can crush that.
Yeah. But I gotta say, I did like this something about that scene, not necessarily the performance, but just it really put me in that space of how horrifying a way that is to go.
Oh yeah.
Because they don't, to the film's credit, maybe this was budgetary, they didn't like do like gore effects of, you know, lots of
Mm-mm.
blood and breaking bones and everything. It's pretty much just you see him right before he gets crushed, but it keeps coming back to it, like the machine is coming down and down and
Mhm.
down, and he's inside, he's like praying and screaming and begging. You're like, my God, that's terrible, because it's a prolonged death. It's not like trash compactor movies we've seen before. It's like, oh, the thing's gonna, like a giant metal bale is
Yeah.
gonna come down and squash him like a cartoon. This is like, he knows he's gonna die and he's got to wait several minutes for it to actually happen.
Yeah, yeah, it's actually an intense scene, and like you said, our villain, not only our main villain, played by William Zip Adams, but his right hand man Becker, Robert Tessier. These guys are in a different movie. Because these two are playing straight up kind of scary villains for a crime show, and I'm just like, wow. I mean, the Adams guy is eating up every scene. They put a little humor in with these guys with his password being Burrow. They put a little humor, but they're aware of it. But these guys are actually formidable, and I liked that. That was surprising. I mean, yes, they're caricatures, but still, I like the bad guys.
I did. I was not as much a fan of Becker, mostly because, first of all, he looked like Steve Wilkos, the former Jerry Springer bodyguard who got his own talk show, like what that guy's going to look like in 30 years. Um, but also, I couldn't quite figure him out because he looks like he should like be really big and dumb and speak with like a vaguely Russian accent, but he doesn't. And at times, he almost seems like he's either a rival or he could be Adam's boss. Like, there's just like something
Right.
weird off about their dynamic. They don't seem like they're a leader henchman. They almost seem like they're on a level playing field. Especially because this Becker guy proves to be indestructible. How many fucking times has he come back in this movie? From getting his ass kicked to getting multiple concussions to getting
He's
choked by a
awesome.
robot hand.
Uh, he's awesome.
Wow.
Well, he was in Star Crash, and he was in Sword and the Sorcerer. That's where I recognized him from. I'm like, oh, okay.
Mm.
But yeah, he does come back a few times. He's like a really hard guy to kill, which I kind of got a kick out of, the fact that he couldn't go away right away. It took a while to kill him. Making him formidable. And that's the thing, is these characters, as much as we've been giving this film kind of a hard time, and of all its flaws, there are a lot of interesting potential here and a lot of interesting ideas. Like, there is a character, I believe it's Roxanne, who's one of the cops who has kind of a thing for Tucker,
Mm-hmm.
and it actually plays into it. And her and Carradine, let's see, I forgot who Roxanne is played by, but they actually have like this really interesting conversation and some interesting dialogue between them. And I'm like, that's kind of an interesting relation. I like this character because she doesn't fall in with the rest of the brutish, the other bounty hunters who just want to kill Tucker for the money. She's got a thing, and it actually plays into the movie. And I'm like, that relationship's interesting. Unfortunately, we get only about a few minutes of that before we move on to more car chasing and driving. And
Well, and she has kind of a a shocking death at the hands of
yeah.
Becker. And that's another scene where when he actually cuts her throat, like there's a close up of him with the knife at her throat. You're like,
Mm-hmm.
oh well, she's gonna get out or whatever. But no, they cut to a wide and he just like and then she falls to the ground, like, holy shit. Um, but yeah, I like that there's I wrote this down. I've got this somewhere.
Mm.
At one point there are two bounty hunters who corner Tucker in an alley or a junkyard. I can't remember. It was one or the other. But the one guy's like, he says, we got the one and only John Tucker. Real cartoon, like kind of laughing. And the other guy says, what do you mean we? And he shoots him. And
Yeah.
so he's got Tucker dead to rights with the gun. And then all of a sudden he gets shot from somewhere off screen. Like, wait, did Marion shoot him? That's what I was expecting, like to cut to her like with the gun or something, but no, it was Roxanne off screen. And I like that before we even realize that, Carradine just kind of like, the guy falls over, Carradine kind of like looks off camera and just goes, kind of like a wink and a point. And you're like, I don't know if he was winking and pointing at the character, or if it was like the first assistant director, like holding up a flask. Like, it's almost break time.
It's almost, you got 2 more lines, David. You go just 2 more, and you get the flask. If you don't do the scene, you don't get the flask.
Ugh.
I don't know. But no, I like that idea. I like the idea that the bounty hunters were flipping on each other. The idea that the whole privatized cops thing, it comes up in RoboCop. That's where it's famous, but you realize that this was actually a theme in even some of these lower budget ones. I don't know. I think you're onto something. It might be that they were trying to kind of go for a RoboCop, the asylum treatment of RoboCop, but they didn't have the budget, but they had the spirit, because man, they put their all into it. Though, a word of advice, folks, and this is just, when you've got your 4 bad guys, the main bad guy, his right-hand man, and 2 henchmen, shoot the main bad guy first instead of the 2 henchmen on the side, because that's what happens. He goes to confront Adam, and the bad guys are all there. There's 4 of them, 4 jabronis lined up, and he's got the gun pointed at him, and then one of them decides to pull the gun, and so instead of shooting the main guy, he has him dead to rights. He could have shot boom, movie over, done. He shoots the 2 guys on the side. They're all out in the open. He had a clear shot.
Well, it's because Adams and Becker had plot armor.
That's right. The plot armor thickens.
Oh my God, this junkyard fight.
The junkyard fight is crazy.
It is, and I always like it when the bad guys show up for like the rumble. Yeah, and they're in like a junkyard or something, and they're wearing suits. like it's not even conducive for like hand-to-hand combat. Oh, there's Don. There it is, plot armor. Nice.
There it is, plot armor.
Oh, I love the emoji.
The little emoji works too, Mr. Don Shanahan. Thank you for joining us.
But no, this. I would like to see just one of these guys like take off the suit and like either have just like a wife beater or maybe some futuristic 1991 tech of his own.
1991.
Okay, yes, Don. I know you wear ties to press screenings, but that's no.
Well, yeah, but he didn't say what else he's wearing. He could very well be just wearing ties to press screening.
That's I don't want to tell stories out of school, but we'll talk later.
Okay, sounds good. Look forward to it. Another character we haven't talked about, and we have to, because the backstory of this character is so weird that he says he's no Lee Shoquist, but he's fancy enough, and you could leave your hat on. Thank you. I will leave my hat on. But is Billy. Billy is his tech guy that he's been talking to on a monitor. This is a gentleman in a wheelchair who is kind of like Oracle for him. He's the inventor. He's the smart guy. He's the hacker who goes through this wonderful sequence of hacking into the main computer so he could, look around for anything crooked going on. But he's the one that made the glove too. But we learned from his backstory when our Tucker's having a heart-to-heart with the reporter that he used to be a real cop. He went on a call. He saw something in the dark. He shot a 6-year-old kid in the back. Guess who the kid is that he shot in the back? Billy, who is now his tech guy. I'm like, wait, what?
Well, maybe it's like, you're good with computers, kid. Like later on, he's like, yeah. And he's like, join up with me or I won't miss next time. Um, but no, I like the idea of this is 89. So I think Alan Moore's The Batman, The Killing Joke had come out like the
Yeah.
year before.
Mm-hmm.
So I wonder if someone at DC was like, we've got this person who's been, shot and permanently paralyzed from the waist down. What if they're also a tech guru? Like they watched this movie and they're like, oh, Barbara Gordon, that's your future. Oracle is born.
You're giving this film way more credit than I think
because it deserves it, Mark. At the end, when they decide, I guess the evil cops get wise to what Billy has been doing. They give him his own death sentence. And they say like wanted for murder or whatever, wanted dead. The second Billy sees that bulletin, someone busts through the door of his secret hideout and shoots him dead.
I know. It's like there's not even a pause. It's like it gets posted and boom, someone busts through the door and kills Billy. And what it was Billy was trying to set up Adams with a bounty. You see, because apparently there's a group of people who are now privatized and left in charge of keeping the peace in the neighborhood are about as deep in thinking or critical thinking as a very shallow puddle, like a drop of rain on pavement, where it's still flat, it's just wet. Because it doesn't matter. All they do is look and see whose name is there and how much the bounty is. They don't exactly look at why or don't care. They just, so you can put anything, which is the whole point. So our man Billy was hacking into the main computer. Bounty goes on his head at the exact same time because they discovered that he was in the system. And he was trying to set up Adams with a bounty. Mm-hmm. Meanwhile, we have our major conflict with main boss and Tucker in the cops is yelling, kill Tucker. And suddenly all the guys who were trying to gun for Tucker now have decided not to gun for Tucker. Until Adam says there's a bounty on his head, take care of him. And then they decide that they want to shoot him again. But Billy's getting killed. This is really a complicated sequence. Billy's getting killed. He manages to do the last good thing of hit the enter key, and Adam's name scrolls across $100,000. So all of these guys, now Tucker, mind you, as far as they understand, still has the price on his head. There's been nothing that establishes that he's innocent or otherwise. They choose to switch their guns to Adams and kill him. Everybody in the shop shoots him as Tucker walks away.
In another RoboCop homage,
another RoboCop homage, but at the same time, I'm like, but Tucker still has the price on his head, as far as you guys know.
That is one thing, like they didn't establish with this board. Like if someone has the charges dropped or they get an appeal, does a bulletin come up saying like John Tucker, bounty rescinded or something like that? Or does it only swing in one direction? Don has a great comment, and I'm glad he said it because I was thinking it.
That's not the only thing flat and wet. Hey-o! It was the 80s. Leave certain people alone. Anyway.
Wow. But no, so I guess I was confused because the way that Tucker talked to Billy throughout the movie, I always got the feeling that he was kind of like an oracle, like he was in his own little hideout. But because of what happens at the end with the guy just like busting through the door and shooting him, I think Billy worked at the police station. Like I think he was part of the cops' outfit. So there was just a guy like either walking down the hallway or maybe he was like positioned at the door as like security for their tech guy. And he was like, oh, I guess this is a thing. And just like kicks the door open, shoots him and goes to collect the money.
Yeah. But then they don't shoot Tucker when he comes in the door right away, even though he's got the $100,000 price tag on his head. But Adam, you know what I mean? It wasn't exactly consistent, except the rookie. No. Except the rookie, because as everybody else puts their guns down, I left out the ultimate part of showing how Tucker is just the badass. Rookie he's still going to shoot Tucker because there's that bounty, and everybody else is like, oh, and Tucker's like, and so he pulls his gun out, but he doesn't shoot the kid. He just shoots his hand and knocks the gun out and go, you need a different line of work, kid. And then cheesy 80s song by McClintock.
There was one car chase that we may have mentioned, but we didn't talk about the resolution to it. It's the one where the car goes over the cliff at the end.
Oh my God, yes. Yeah.
But during that chase scene, there's like an upbeat inspirational rock song playing. It's like something out of Iron Eagle, but it's like this life and death car chase with people shooting like shotguns at each other. Like, what is going on here?
It literally is an upbeat 80s, like it was a lost song from the Transformers, the movie. Like, this is definitely in the spirit of Stan Bush, okay? But they're doing the major life and death car chase. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Going back and forth, don't pay attention to that. Underneath a freeway where there's concrete, pillars, and they're, again, horrible shots. All these folks are stormtroopers, folks, because no one can hit the broadside of a barn. Anyway, yeah, they're chasing them. And then our man Tucker manages to ditch them. And our two bounty hunters, like, there's fog and dust kicked up, and they're still driving, and suddenly they stop, and they've stopped right at the edge of a cliff.
Well, Tucker used the smoke bomb to distract them.
Oh, that's right. He had a smoke bomb. He used the smoke bomb that he just had, I guess, and they stop at just the edge of the cliff, and they're like, oh, it was one of those, Bugs Bunny moments. Oh, we just, okay, get out slowly. Their car is all solid ground. They don't need to get out slowly. The car is not like hanging on the edge, like teetering or something. But they don't get a chance to get out, because then our man Tucker pushes them in a wonderful action sequence where we get the opposite angle of this random car. I don't even think they shot this. I think it's from a different movie altogether. They
pushed a Victory Auto Records commercial or something. But I got to give them credit, because it was a nice fall and crash. But the moment of restraint, and maybe this is a limitation of the stock footage that they bought, it didn't burst into flames. It just kind of like laid there, upside down.
I was surprised that it didn't blow up. I was like, oh, here we go. Okay, they rolls down the hill quite impressively. And we're talking 89. So this is in 89, I think it was a Cutlass or whatever that they were chasing. I mean, it's a big car, and they push this sucker over, and very impressive crashing, but it doesn't blow up. We don't even get like a cutaway later to where all of a sudden you hear the explosion sound or anything. They just fell over. And I was impressed by that. I'm impressed that it didn't blow up.
Yeah. Oh, and then I think, what's her name? Marion says something to, Tucker or whatever, and he just goes, "Bad brakes."
Yeah.
Oh, there's a couple of those cheesy, like badass one-liners.
Some badass one-liners in here. Yeah. Oh, yeah. The other one was that "Welcome to the street." He just said, it's like suddenly David Carradine was like, oh, I should be a badass here. Okay, I'll say something.
But I don't really do the trick or treat thing anymore, because I just go out with the kids, and I'm the lame dad hanging back and watching them have fun. But damn it, this movie made me want to dress up as John Tucker for one Halloween.
With the glove. You got to have the glove.
With the glove, with the embroidered gold hand on the back of the jean jacket. Well, it's also just an excuse to let everything hang out, because I have a root beer gut because I don't drink, but yeah, I just like to look like this schlubby piece of crap, but then you give them the look like you don't want to do this.
You greet kids at the door at your house for trick or treat. When they knock on your door for candy, you just go, "Welcome to the street." Toss them a bullet in their bucket. A bullet in their bucket.
I was going to say every fifth kid gets a laser blast to the face.
Welcome to the street. But that's the thing, though. They tease this glove on the poster, And the way they shoot this, I'm trying to think if it wasn't for the end scene with the remote control, which is the running gimmick throughout this whole thing, you got to use remote control. I don't believe in a remote control. You got to use the remote control. And then he's getting his ass handed to him, and then he uses the remote control.
I was surprised. I didn't think that they were going to use the remote control.
I didn't think so either, but it would have been nice to see the glove more because, as we've mentioned, folks, he's had at least 3 other situations since the beginning of the film where he should have used it and could have easily won the day of the situation. But instead, it just sat in his case until he hits the remote control. Then we find out it flies on its own. It does all these nifty things.
Those are the inverted speakers that you mentioned. That's the jet propulsion. Yeah.
It must be the jet propulsion. I don't know. But they do this wonderful thing where they have the camera mounted on the glove and they do the POV, like you said, the Evil Dead, or what it reminded me of was I Come in Peace, when we had the CD POV, the death CD. It reminded me exactly like that. And then
there were a couple of there were a couple of shots that reminded me of, because I wasn't quite sure how they pulled it off. It was probably the way Coscarelli did it with like fishing line and trick photography. But of the ball from Phantasm, there's some like ball shots, but it was the glove, and it even looked like they kind of warped it. Like warped the prop to make it look like, okay, we're going to film this as if it's in motion. So we're going to kind of distort the physical object to make it look like it's flying really fast. It was kind of a cool trick. It wasn't, that's the thing. It was executed too well for me to say this looks really cheap and stupid and funny. I was like, how are they pulling this off?
It's actually an impressive sequence. I was like, where was this earlier? Because and by remote control, folks, this thing it just is intuitive, because all our man Tucker has to do is press the same red button on the remote, but this thing dodges and weaves and then punches main bad guy many times.
What's worse than that, though, is Becker has Tucker down on the ground.
Yeah,
Becker's the bad guy. Tucker's the good guy. And Tucker like reaches in his pocket or whatever and pulls out the remote, and Becker's like, what are you gonna do with that thing? And we, the audience, get to see the glove come to life, come out of the box, rocket out, and do all of its like maneuvering and stuff. It goes on for like 2 minutes, but you got to think back on this situation. Like, Becker is getting ready to shoot Tucker in the face, and Tucker's just like sitting there fidgeting with this box. Like, what? No, seriously, man, what the fuck are you doing?
He was distracting him in confusion. That's why he just hitting the button and clicking, and the guy's like, what?
After 10 seconds of this, Tucker would have had a bullet in his head.
I think so.
Becker had been a kind of real hitman.
I think so. I give mad props Tucker to his fighting style. Not many heroes we see will go for the junk. You hardly ever see that, but there's at least 2 instances where our man Tucker realizes that this guy's got the leverage on him, so he has no qualms with going.
He goes for the lever.
He goes for the lever, and takes care of these nuts. There's at least 2 different times he cold cocks them. No pun intended.
Can I just take a sidebar and mention that I got PTSD when you said the phrase "these nuts," because my young children have recently learned that phrase, so it's a constant battle in the house. Like, no, don't say it. But then when the 4-year-old says it, it's just hard not to laugh and like double over with the cutes. That's my own personal nightmare. Anyway, back to this movie. I want to rename this movie Our Man Tucker, because you keep using that phrase, but I think that's the perfect name for this movie. Dare I say this franchise, if Mr. Carradine had still been with us.
Yes, this franchise. I mean, this is made on a wafer thin budget, obviously. Just cashing in on the RoboCop thing. This is back, when it didn't take just 3 months to whip together another movie that you want, low budget film. It took time because it's shot on, this looked like it was shot on film. It had some production behind it. Robert mentioned Mike Carradine have salvaged the arm from Death Race 2000. He might have, The glove, yeah, the whole glove thing he might have gotten from Ye Old Frankenstein.
So wait a second, which came first? Was the Nintendo Power Glove stolen from Death Wraith 2000?
No, that's I like that idea.
Damn it.
You keep your power gloves off her. Anyway, sorry, I just saw the Wizard trailer like so many times. The Nintendo's biggest commercial for Super Mario Brothers 3. Anyway,
what a
cover that sometime.
I watched that because I think Shout Factory put out a couple of years ago, and it brought back a lot of memories of loving Mario 3. But then also, it's not really about Nintendo Championship. It's more about this broken family trying to come together on these weird custody issues. I'm like, what the hell?
I know, right? Don't think about the Wizard too hard. It's all about the Power Glove and the marketing. Early marketing before the internet. They had to do it another way. Let's make a movie.
Merchandising.
There was no merchandising from here, though. When I see Cops, it shows you where I come from. I was thinking of the animated film, animated series. There was an animated TV series called Cops, where it was like all these caricatures of different villains and characters. They had special weapons and everything, and that was set way in the future. And I always thought of that.
1995.
Yeah. No. I think it had a 20 in its title, in its future. So it was a lot more than this one, which, yes, Freddy Krueger did use the Power Glove in A Nightmare on Elm Street 5. He did put the junkie in the video game, and that's where you get the wonderful scene of, great graphics.
Quick correction. I hate to do this, Robert. It was Nightmare 6.
Oh,
Freddy's
yeah.
Dead, the final
6.
Nightmare.
Yeah.
Because that was at least memorable. There was nothing really to take away from Nightmare 5.
You didn't find
the comic book scene, I guess.
You didn't find the Arnolds memorable at all with their cameo in...
Oh, when you said the Arnolds, I thought you meant like Schwarzenegger clones.
No, I meant...
you're talking about like Roseanne
and
Tom.
Yeah.
No, I was saying there's not much memorable from Nightmare 5, which is a dumb statement because there actually is, but that movie is a slog for me personally.
It still was an interesting trilogy, an interesting premise for your slasher. But yeah, I remember the Power Glove with Freddy. I loved that line and the whole little video game thing of trapping the guy in there. And this glove
he got in there with wasn't he like they were playing Inagata Davida too? Yeah,
because the guy got high, and when he got high, he faded out, and then faded to sleep because he was so high, and then he got sucked into the TV thanks to Inagata Davida, and then he was playing in a game, and it was Freddy in his Power Glove. I've got the Power Glove. And,
that was Breckin Meyer from Clueless. Yeah. Okay, don't worry, Robert. It's okay not to know the complete saga of Freddy Krueger. You might actually have a life, unlike me. I grew up like worshiping Freddy Krueger when I should have been studying things in school.
No, I mix up 5 and 6 all the time. The later ones, I remember all the way through like 3 and 4, and then after 4. Dream Child, I thought it was an interesting concept, but I don't remember a huge amount from that. And, Freddy's Dead. Except I remember Freddy's Dead. Yes, we're going off on tangents, folks. I remember with Freddy's Dead, my grandparents took me to see it. They took me to see Freddy's Dead. It was great. We saw it in this little movie theater. They took me to see it. It was on the west side of Milwaukee, and it was quite a fond moment with my little grandma, who's like 4'5", and my grandfather and I, because I couldn't get in because I was too young to go see it by myself, so they took me.
Well, Mark, I don't need to go see Steven Spielberg's latest opus to appreciate your West Side Story.
Oh, when you're a jet, you're always a jet, unless you're Tucker. And then I got him. And with that, I think we're gonna end it for the.
No. Hold on. I want to see John Tucker in the world of West Side Story.
Da 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 da. Oh, you could have the guys, the jabronis in suits on one side, and you could have the cops, all the guys, all the bounty hunter looking guys on the other side, snapping, and then Tucker's in the middle, and then you've got the reporter, and then they're the couple between.
Oh my God.
It's
Yes.
Force
Yes.
Side Story is what it is. It's Force Side Story.
That sounds like a movie I don't want to
That's
be
a
associated
different
with at all.
movie.
Yeah. Yeah.
By
no
Axel
thanks.
Braun. No. Anyway. Well, like this film, our show has just gone in many directions. Final thought though with this, like I said, I know it got the riff tracks treatment. In fact, it's about the only thing you could find out. It's by far not a great film, but I found a lot of entertainment here. I did not find myself like because I don't know if it was morbid fascination of where is this going to go now, or David Carradine's just up and down of not interested at all, and then I've got to act here. Okay. Yeah. It's, I'm not sure, but yeah, I didn't I am it's not a great film technically or whatnot, but I found entertainment in it. What about you?
It's not even a good film, but no, I enjoyed it. It was a weird situation where like they could have taken 20 minutes out of this, had it just be an hour-long TV show or something. Because I was kind of checking my watch, just because once you realize what the movie is doing in any given scene, you're like, okay, now I've got 4 minutes of this
Yeah.
to just not really doing anything innovative. Like the car chase starts off great, shotguns, smoke bombs, and then at the end when they get pushed over the cliff, but there's like 2 minutes of them just driving and shooting. Like, come on. But yeah, it's cool because you just really think about what was going on with the making of this movie. What was David Carradine when he signed on to this? He's like, yeah, it's a paycheck. I really don't care at all about this. Or did he have any kind of pride where it's like, I'm pretending not to be invested because that's part of my character. It's just like there's so much to think about while you're watching this bad movie that I can't just completely write it off.
Yeah, maybe he was just going, maybe Canon will see me and sign me. And Robert said,
how is this not a canon film? I don't know.
I don't know. It looks like late canon film. It could definitely fit in that wheelhouse for sure. Robert says, I think if a Carradine film from the 80s is even interesting, it exceeds most people's expectations and perhaps defies them. Yeah, probably because a lot of people don't even know probably David Carradine's movie work. If you grew up you knew him from Kung Fu, that's what you knew him from. You really didn't know his other films, in all honesty. For a lot of us younger folk anyway, growing up, that's who you know him as, right?
Yeah, I think I'm still not that familiar with Carradine's like full body of work. I mostly know from what Tarantino would do with him 15 years later or whatever in Kill Bill, which I think was fantastic. And that's why it's also kind of shocking, because that's my memory of him. That's my David Carradine. Mm-hmm. So to see him a few years earlier looking like this, like, wow.
You mean you
looking
didn't
like beer?
You didn't see him in Dino Croc versus Super Gator though? That's a classic.
I missed it. I'm sorry.
You missed out on that. What the heck?
Well, did that movie come out in 1988? Could we talk about it then?
No, that title, come on. That's not any title outside of The Asylum. They the only ones.
You said it yourself. This movie was like pre-Asylum.
It is pre-Asylum, in all honesty. And Robert Braun says he does think by this time Carradine was in the canon release of POW, The Escape. And that may very well be, because it seems like if you worked in the 80s at some point, were on, it would have been, you were on Canon's payroll at some point in time in the 80s. If you weren't working for major studios, Canon at some point hired you. So God bless them. And with that, I think we'll end it for the day, folks. I mean, you're not losing out too much not watching the Riff Tracks version, but if you're interested to see it without commentary outside of ours tonight, you could watch it on YouTube. It's free. You just have alcohol with you and you'll be fine.
And just to underscore this, the CYA disclaimer for all this, we don't endorse piracy, but when it comes to certain movies that are not like literally not available anywhere else, it's like, well, what are you gonna do? I mean, I would have gladly paid $2 or $3 or even $5 to watch this movie from a streaming service, but it just wasn't around.
I would have easily paid the $2.99 rental service for this on Amazon, and then it goes with what we were talking about before the show about physical media versus streaming. I'm like, some of these movies, I don't understand why they don't have them available. It's like, why not? Trust me, storage is cheap nowadays. And if you could get a few schmeckles, as Mr. Derek Carey would say, for, the film, why not put it up there, get the rights to it? A lot of those obscure ones are public domain though, because they've lapsed. So you can find them onto YouTube. I do not advocate piracy either, but part of the reason there is piracy studios is because you take these obscure films that you own the rights of and you let them sit on the shelf collecting dust, rather toss them in a small corner of your streaming service and let someone like myself watch that, because I would definitely,
yeah,
and even pay a couple few bucks. So, and Robert leaves us tonight with the Carradine's brother Robert was in #1 with a bullet, a canon release by Billy with Billy D. Williams. That he was. So, yeah, the Carradines definitely have a long history of being in interesting films. Let's
Never the diplomat.
Thank you. Thank you. And we'll close it out tonight, always with the license to shill. And this is where I allow my guest, this is where my guest, if he cares to, can pimp whatever he wants. So, sir, license to shill, the floor is definitely yours.
Well, I can't let this last comment by Robert Baum go by because he just dropped it in. Martha Plimpton is David Carradine's niece? Really? Was in the canon film Shy People, which starred Carradine's ex Barbara Hershey. Wow, I hope Austin Trunick is developing or devoting an entire chapter to the Carradine love triangle in his 3rd volume.
Well, I considering his 2nd volume is only 2 years of the canon trilogy of the canon years, and it's already larger than War and Peace. So
the Carradine saga will be the Silmarillion of the canon film guide.
It will be.
Yeah. But anyway, I'm Ian Simmons. I run Kicking the Seat, which you can find at kickseat.com. I also have a YouTube channel. We do like movie reviews and roundtables and, release things a few times a week. So check me out there. Also on Wednesdays, whenever there's a Disney Plus / Marvel show on, we do a live roundtable with Earth's mightiest critics, of which Mark has been a frequent and beloved guest. This month / week, we're talking about Hawkeye, doing a show called Hawk Talk. So that's 8:30 p.m. Central live. So join us there. And that's all of my shilling, I think.
That's all his shilling. Make sure you check that out, folks. Other great conversations he has on there. Things that'll let you scream at the screen going, "You're wrong," or "You're right," or "Wait, what?" A lot of that going on on his channel as well as ours. We hope you enjoyed our discussion here and ending Full Force Month this way. Next month, we've got 4 films. They're all canon films. I just couldn't. We've got the Ninja Trilogy, and we're ending it with the last reported film that was released in the theater by canon. Was it American Cyborg Steel Warrior? So I've got an interesting story with that film, but you'll have to wait till the end of December for that. But until then, we got some ninjas to take on, my friend. So hope you've got your plot armor on as we take those on all month, closing out 2021. I figured was appropriate. Yeah, just let's throw some more canon films on the fodder. Oh,
nice. I'm excited for this one.
Thank you.
Yippee-ki-yah.
Yippee-ki-yah. With that, we'll just say a good night, everyone.
Good night.